Hello everyone. Today we are diving into one of history's most foundational unit, early human societies and origin to from origin to agriculture. In this lecture, we are going to traverse 3 million years of human transformation. This isn't just a timeline to memorize for exam. What we are studying is how and why humans became humans biologically, technologically, socially, and economically. We are asking what makes us different from other animals, and more importantly, how did those differences emerge and shape our society? If you understand this unit deeply, every civilization you study afterwards, be it Mesopotamia, Egypt, Indus Valley, or China, it will make sense. You will understand why they developed the institution they did. So pay close attention. This is foundational. What we will be learning, the roadmap is the roadmap for today. We have five major themes. First, human origin and evolution. We are covering 3 million years of biological evolution. How did we go from ape-like creatures to modern humans? What drove these changes? Second, the development of tools, fire, and language. How technology and symbolic communication transformed for what humans could do and think. Third, kinship systems and social organization. How humans created complex social structures that enabled cooperation at scales never seen before in nature. Fourth, from hunting gathering to agriculture, the transition from foraging societies, foraging to agriculture or settled farming. This is perhaps the most transformative shift in human history. And finally, fifth, the consequences of agricultural revolution. What were the cost and benefit of the shift? What institutional forms emerged as a result? So let's begin. All right. So we're starting with the biological foundation. I want to give you a clear timeline of hominid evolution because this progression is important for understanding the emergence of modern human capacities. We have four major stages to trace. First is Australopithecus. Let me bring out a new PPT to explain it. Okay. So first we have Australopithecus. These are the earliest bipedal hominid. Okay, first to walk bipedally, walking upright on two legs around 3 to 4 million years ago in East and Southern Africa. 3 to 4 million years ago, East and Southern Africa. Now, why is bipedalism important? So the question majorly we have is why is bipedalism? Walking upright, it freed the hands Hands that were previously used for locomotion could now carry things, manipulate objects, make tools. Bipedalism also gave better vantage point for surveying the savanna. It was an adaptive advantage to the changing African environment. So bipedalism was an adaptive advantage. Now, second, Homo habilis, around 2.5 to 2 million years ago. 2.5 to 2 million years ago. We see the emergence of a new genus, our own genus, Homo. Genus Homo, our own genus. Homo habilis, or the handyman, because they are using their hands. Represents a crucial, this Homo habilis represents a crucial threshold. Brain size increases to 600 to 700 cubic centimeters. But here's the critical detail. We find evidence of stone tool manufacture associated with Homo habilis. Tool making requires abstract thinking. They were making stone tools, and tool making requires abstract thinking, planning, coordination between hand and eye. This is a cognitive marker that distinguishes Homo from earlier hominid. Third, Homo erectus, emerging around 1.8 to 1.5 million years ago. Homo erectus is substantially different. Brain size reaches 900 to 1100 cubic centimeters, approaching modern human size. Physical build became more robust, and crucially, Homo erectus is the first hominid to control fire. We will discuss fire in detail in our next section, but understand that fire control represents a major technological threshold. Additionally, Homo erectus migrates out of Africa into Eurasia, suggesting improved adaptive capacity. Fire is allowing us what? An adaptive capacity. We are our ancestors or Homo erectus are moving into new land which is cold, full of predators. Fire is providing protection from all these elements. Fourth and finally, we have Homo sapiens sapiens, modern humans. Anatomically, we emerge around 200,000 to 150,000 years ago. Brain size is approximately 1300 to 1400 cubic centimeters, actually slightly smaller than Neanderthal in some cases, but qualitatively different. Homo sapien possesses what we call symbolic consciousness. Okay? The capacity, consciousness, the capacity to create and interpret abstract symbols. We create art, we use complex language, we imagine futures and pasts. The capacity for symbolic representation is what defines us. Now, here's a crucial historiographical point. Biological evolution doesn't determine history. Each biological change enables new possibilities. Larger brain, enabled more complex thinking. Bipedalism freed hand for tool use. But what humans did with these possibilities was contingent, cultural, and historical. Evolution gives us the toolkit, history is what we built with it. Now, let me introduce you to one of the most famous individual in human history, Lucy. And yes, I say individual because Lucy was an actual person, even if she lived 3.2 million years ago. Lucy was discovered in Hadar, Ethiopia, in 1974, and she is an Australopithecus afarensis. From our earliest timeline जो भी हमने पढ़ी थी. Here are the remarkable details about her. She was tiny, only 3.8 feet tall, shorter than an average 11-year-old child today. Yet she was fully bipedal. When paleontologists first examined her skeleton, they could see clearly she walked on two legs, her pelvis, her femur, her foot structure all adapted for bipedal locomotion. She ate mostly plants. Analysis of her teeth and jaw structure indicates a primarily herbivorous diet, though she likely ate meat opportunistically. Here's what fascinating. Lucy showed a remarkable combination of features. Her skeleton shows ape-like characteristics, long arms, curved fingers, a body built for climbing. Yet her gait was human-like. She was a transitional form. Lucy was a transitional form. And that's exactly what makes her so important. She shows us that bipedalism emerged earlier than tool making, fire, before language. The first step toward humanity was learning to walk upright. Lucy lived and died alone in African landscape 3.2 million years ago. We don't know what killed her, perhaps predation, perhaps disease, but her skeleton survived, preserved in sediment, waiting for us to tell her story millions of years later. When we hold that story, we are holding the literal bones of human history. Six key defining characteristics of human. Now I want to shift perspective slightly rather than just looking at evolution chronologically. Let's think about what actually defines us as human, what makes human different from other animals. Let me walk through each one because these aren't just abstract qualities; they are concrete practices that shape how human societies function. First, we have tool making. This is a unique capacity to design and use complex tools. Now, other animals do use tools. Chimpanzees use stick to fish for termites. Birds use stone. But humans design tool for purpose beyond immediate use. Okay. We design tools. Okay. We create tools to make other tools. We plan tool manufacture. Over 2.5 million years, tool technology became increasingly sophisticated. Tools represent our ability to externalize our thought, to take an idea from our mind and realize it in physical matters. Second, we have exchange. Humans barter and trade with other communities. This is profound because it means humans engage in economic activity beyond immediate subsistence. When you trade, you are taking something you value, giving it to someone else in exchange for something they value. This requires trust, it requires planning, it requires social bonds extending beyond family. exchange is fundamentally a social technology. Third, we have language, complex symbolic communication, infinite meaningful sounds. This is unique to humans. Other animals communicate bird song, whale calls, chimpanzee vocalizations, but they cannot create new meaningful sounds indefinitely. Humans can. A child can learn any language given exposure. Languages can generate infinite meaningful utterances from finite elements. Language is the technology of meaning making. Fourth, art, painting, sculpture, symbolic expressions. This is perhaps the clearest marker of symbolic consciousness. Consciousness. When someone paints a bison on a cave wall, they are representing an idea through visual symbols. Art has no immediate practical functions. It doesn't provide food or protection. Yet art appears very early in human history and persists universally. Art is how humans express meaning, communicate ideas that can't be expressed practically, or record cultural values. Okay, so it was for planning or to keep a record of an event or hunting, a planning of a sort. Fifth, we have kinship, extensive social relationships through marriage and descent. This might seem less dramatic than language or art, but kinship is arguably the most foundational human innovation. Animals have families, mammals typically care for their young, but humans created system for kinship that extends far beyond immediate reproduction. Through kinship, we organize society. Through kinship, we create obligations and alliances. How through kinship we define who belongs to which group. Sixth, we have agriculture, growing crops for food production. This appears last chronologically but is fundamental to complex societies. Agriculture was revolutionary. It allowed population to grow, it forced people to settle, population growth, settlement. It created surplus that enabled specialized role and hierarchies. Specialized role, which in turn created civilizations. These six characteristics don't appear simultaneously. They emerge at different times over millions of years, but together they define humanity. When all six are present together, we have behaviorally modern humans capable of creating complex civilization. Okay, all these things come together and they create complex civilization. Tool making revolution. Let's now focus specifically on tool making because this is where human technology begins. Evidence of deliberately crafted stone tools appears around 2.5 million years ago. We find them in East Africa, particularly associated with early Homo habilis. These tools Stone tools are simple by modern standards. Stones struck to create sharp edges for cutting. They were used for processing meat and bone, for cutting plant material and for scraping hides. Okay. Now here's something important in here, and I want to emphasize: women invented first tools for efficient gathering. This is a corrective to older narrative that portrayed tool invention as primarily a male hunting innovation. In reality, women responsible for gathering plant foods and carrying infants had strong incentives to develop tools and containers. Containers to carry food and infants, containers to stone tools to break open nuts, and stone tools to kill animals, dig for tubers and harvest seeds. This wasn't accidental. Women were solving real practical problems. They innovated. These tools mark the beginning of technology, humanity's capacity to manipulate our environment deliberately, and they changed human diet and capabilities fundamentally. With tools, early humans could process food more efficiently. Okay, food processing. They could crack bones to access marrow. They could process tough plant material. This expanded the range of food available and provided improved nutrition. But here's a crucial cognitive dimension. Tool making requires tool making requires abstract thinking. You must first recognize which stones are suitable for tool manufacture. You must imagine the finished tool before it exists. You must plan a sequence of strikes to achieve that form. You must execute that plan with precision and judgment. This is not instinctive behavior, it's learned, planned, abstract reasoning. Tool making reflects emerging human cognition. Tool making, it represents evolving or emerging human cognition. As time progressed, moving from 2.5 million years ago, ago, forward, tool technology became increasingly sophisticated. Around 1.5 million years ago, we see hand axes. Like this, around 1.5 million years ago, we find hand axes, carefully shaped tools with symmetrical edges, specifically designed for butchering large game. These aren't crude stones, they are artifacts demonstrating artistic sensibilities and precise planning. By 500,000 years ago, we see every even more specialized tools for hunting, or scrappers, for hide removal, hide processing, or we have cutting blades, pointed implements for hunting. Toolkits became diverse, indicating specialized purpose. This diversification is crucial because it indicates increasingly sophisticated planning and resource management. Different tools for different tasks, which requires knowledge of which tool works best for which purpose, and knowledge must be transmitted. Someone must teach a young person how to make and use these tools. We are looking at the emergence of transmitted culture. Okay. Knowledge passed from generation to generation. This is revolutionary evolutionarily. Humans accumulate knowledge, we create cultural archives. But the most transformative technology in early human history is undoubtedly fire. Fire changed everything. The first evidence of controlled fire appears around 500,000 years ago in Jacodian in China, at Jacodian in China, which is associated with Homo erectus. Now, fire could have been used earlier. There's some evidence suggesting fire used by earlier hominids, but 500 years ago, we have clear evidence of controlled fire use, maintenance, and transmission of fire knowledge. What does fire actually enable? Let me go through the implication. Okay. First, cooking. When you cook food, particularly meat and tubers, you dramatically increases digestive efficiency. It becomes more digestible. The energy your body must expend to digest cooked food is substantially less than raw food. This means more available energy for other activities like tool manufacture, hunting, socializing, thinking. Cooking essentially pre-digest food, making nutrients more bioavailable. From a nutritional standpoint, cooking was revolutionary. Additionally, cooking destroyed toxins and harmful bacteria present in raw food. Many plant contains toxins. Cooking breaks them down, making them edible. Many bacteria are killed by heat. Cooking made food safer. Warmth and light. Fire extends the usable day. Without fire, your activities must cease when darkness falls. So in night time, with fire you can work, hunt or socialize after sunset. You can gather around the fire and share stories. Fire becomes a focal point for social bonding. Additionally, fire provides warmth. This is critical because it enables migration into colder climates. When Homo erectus migrated northward into Eurasia, fire was essential. Without fire, European winters are lethal. Fire literally made geographical expansion possible. Okay. Third, protection from predators. Large carnivores are typically deterred by fire. A burning fire circle around a camp provided protection. This allowed human groups to be more secure at night, to sleep better, to survive in environments with dangerous predators. Fourth, landscape transformation. Fire could be used deliberately to burn vegetation, promoting growth of useful plants or driving game towards hunters. This represents intentional landscape management. Humans were no longer simply passive inhabitants of their environment, they were actively shaping it. Fifth, we have psychological mastery. Mastery. Perhaps most subtly but importantly, controlling fire represented mastery over nature. Early humans are not simply inhabiting their environment passively, they are manipulating natural forces, bending nature to their purposes. This represents a psychological shift in human consciousness, the sense that nature can be controlled that humans have power in the world. So, by approximately 1 million years ago, we have hominids with sophisticated stone tools and controlled fire use. What does this enable? Large game hunting becomes more systematic because now they're able to control fire. Migration to new environment become possible. Longer lifespan results from improved nutrition. Population growth become feasible. More complex social organization emerges. But here's the critical historiographical point. None of these developments are inevitable. They are possibilities enabled by technology, but realized through human choice and action. The path forward was contingent. Kinship. Now we arrive at perhaps the most distinctively human social innovation, kinship system. Kinship is the recognition of relationship based on descent and marriage. And I want to emphasize this is not simply biological. Animals have families. Human kinship is something more. It's a social overlay on biology. Let me explain why kinship is so important and what makes it unique to humans. First, cooperation in food shortages. When resources are scarce locally, kinship network allow you to draw on relatives in other locations, the relatives who are in other locations. You have obligations to kin. They must help you in crisis. This is the obligation. This distributes risk across a broader population. Second, defense against hostile groups. Defense against hostile groups. Kinship creates alliances through marriage. Two groups become related. This creates incentive against warfare. You don't want to kill your in-laws. Kinship networks expand the circle of people you won't attack. Third, sharing knowledge across groups. When people move between groups through marriage, they carry knowledge with them. Techniques for tool making, knowledge of resources, spiritual practices spread through kinship network. Fourth, better gene flow and survival. Kinship exogamy rules, the prohibition against marrying within your group. This forces marriage outside the group. This prevents inbreeding and creates genetic diversity. What makes kinship unique to humans? Humans created in-laws. In-laws don't exist in nature. Other animals made, reproduce, raise offspring, but humans created the category of in-laws. The family members created, acquired through marriage, who are not biologically related. This is revolutionary. It created new forms of social obligation and alliances. Now, how did kinship emerge? Here, the theory by R. Fox, according to him, kinship. This is related to the shift from plant eating to hunting. Now, how? Let's look into it. Large scale hunting uh, created rigid sexual division of labor. Okay, labor division because of large scale hunting. Men hunted require because hunting required mobility, stealth, and sustained focus. So men are hunting. Okay, hunting, and women are gathering. Gathering allowed accommodation of pregnancy and child care. Okay, these different roles created what Fox calls food exchange between males and females. Now, from here, food exchange is coming into picture. Family is being created. Men bought hunted meat, women bought gathered plants. This created a new type of relationship based on reciprocal exchange of different food. And this was Fox argues, is probably at the root of truly human society. It's building a new type of relationship, a family. Importantly, kingship was regulated through exogamy rules, which is the prohibition against marrying within your own group. This forced marriages outside the group, creating in-laws and allies in distant communities. This prevented hostilities between groups because you don't want to kill your own relative's relative. So kingship emerged from practical necessities, the need to cooperate, trade, and reduce conflict. But it became a fundamental organizing principle of human society. Even today, kingship structures how we organize. We speak of brothers in arms, workplace family, family businesses. The language of kinship remains central to how we conceptualize social organization. By 20,000 to 10,000 years ago, we have evidence of sophisticated kinship systems. Burial practices show differential treatment of individuals, some buried with elaborate grave goods, others simply. Some burial show care for individuals who would have been unable to contribute to subsistence. This indicates that kinship obligation transcended practical utility. You cared for family members even when they couldn't contribute. Kinship had become moral and spiritual, not just practical. One of the most fascinating aspects of early human societies is their engagement in long distance exchange. This reveals sophisticated planning, social network, and emergence of what we might call economic activity. Adam Smith, the 18th century economist, observes humans have bartered from time immemorial. He is right, exchange is ancient. What evidence do we have? First, around 130,000 years ago, obsidian from Kenya's Rift Valley, a material found only in specific location, was being used in Tanzania. The material traveled 300 kilometers from source to use location. What does this matter? Why does this matter? It shows sophisticated trade networks. Groups in Kenya were producing obsidian tools, and these tools were being exchanged, passed from hand to hand across enormous distances. This required multiple groups cooperating, trusting each other, engaging in repeated exchanges. Second, 20,000 years ago, flint tools at Kostanki in Russia came from sources 160 kilometers away. Again, material traveling vast distances. This indicate organized persistent exchange network. Third, exchange of valuables. The principle of gifting. Gifts make friends and friends make gift. This exchange of valuables principle. This is profound because exchange wasn't just merely transactional, buying and selling as we think of it today. Exchange was relational. When you gave someone a gift, you created an obligation. They now owed you, not necessarily the same item, but a reciprocal gesture. This created ongoing relationships. Gift exchange created friendships and alliances and trade partnerships. Okay, so exchanges of gifts built friendship, friendships, alliances, partnership. This happens even today. Anthropologists distinguish different forms of exchange. Exchanges. First, we have generalized reciprocity, which means It involves gift expected to be reciprocated eventually without precise accounting. You help your neighbor today, you expect help eventually. Second, we have balanced reciprocity. Eventually, it involves more precise equivalence. You give something worth X, you expect something worth approximately X in return. Third, we have is negative reciprocity. Negative reciprocity is essentially barter. Each party tries to get the better deal. Early human exchange likely emphasized generalized and balanced reciprocity through these cultural networks. These exchange networks, different regions obtained goods they couldn't produce locally. Trade made societies wealthier. It also created interdependence. We need what the other groups produces. We need what you produce, and then they need what you produce. This reduced conflict, trade is peace. So by 20,000 to 10,000 years ago, we have evidence of sophisticated long distance exchange between network spanning continents. This indicates economic organization, planning, and complex social relationships. Early human societies were not simple or isolated. They were engaged in sophisticated economic activities.